Hi there, I'm Tom Field. I'm Senior Vice President of Editorial with Information Security Media Group. I'm very glad to welcome you to this session today where the topic is from continuous controls monitoring to continuous assurance, how a security data fabric unlocks the next era of compliance. Joining me today is Erin Ham. She's Senior Director and Field Chief Data Officer for DataBee, a Comcast company. And before I bring her onto our virtual stage, let me give you some background on our session today. For years, organizations have relied on traditional continuous controls monitoring to validate technical controls and support compliance efforts. But today's regulatory landscape, expanding attack surfaces, and executive demand for real-time risk insight require far more than periodic checks and scattered data sources can deliver. A new era of compliance is emerging, one where organizations move beyond CCM into continuous controls monitoring and risk management, powered by the capabilities of a modern security data fabric. In this session today, Erin's going to explore with us how the rise of unified, normalized, connected security data is fundamentally reshaping what compliance teams can do. No longer constrained by siloed tools, manual evidence collection, or point-in-time visibility, organizations can now achieve always-on assurance across frameworks, assets, users, vulnerabilities, and business processes. Among the topics we'll cover today, why traditional compliance models and even legacy CCM can't keep up with evolving regulations, distributed environments, and continuous cyber threats. What a security data fabric enables that wasn't possible before, and what boards and executives now expect in terms of outcome-driven reporting, real-time risk visibility, and clear governance matrix, and how continuous monitoring finally delivers it. First, let me tell you a bit about my organization, Information Security Media Group. We're a global education and intelligence firm. We're based in the U.S. in Princeton, New Jersey, and of course, you may know us by any number of our 38 media properties. These include Bank Info Security, Data Breach Today, and AItoday.io. In all, we serve an audience of more than 2 million security and technology leaders globally, and we give them a daily diet of news, analysis, research, events, and educational programs just like this one. Just a few notes of housekeeping. If you have any questions for Erin during the course of this session, submit them anytime via the chat window on your screen. We can't promise to get to every one of your questions today, but any question we don't answer today, we'll get a response back to you via email. Should you encounter technical difficulties while viewing today's webinar, I always urge you to take down the email address that you see on your screen now. If you write to webinars at ISMG.io, we have got support staff standing by to help you. And a reminder, today's webinar is copyrighted material meant for today's session and individual study purposes only. If you would like to use any of the information presented today, or if you are looking for customized training materials, please contact us. Let's meet our sponsor today, DataBee. DataBee, a Comcast company, offers the DataBee Security, Risk, and Compliance Data Fabric platform and DataBee Blue Vector, an on-premises network detection and response platform for some of the world's large enterprises and federal agencies. They help their customers work smarter with an evidence-centric approach to security that prepares them for what is next. Developed and proven at scale, DataBee delivers connected security and compliance data and insights that can work for everyone in an organization. Built to protect critical government and enterprise networks, DataBee Blue Vector delivers AI-powered NDR for visibility across network, devices, users, files, and data to discover and hunt skilled and motivated threats. You can learn more at databee.ai. And now let's meet our speaker, Erin Ham. Again, she's Senior Director and Field Chief Data Officer for DataBee, a Comcast company, which offers the DataBee Security Data Fabric platform to some of the world's large enterprises. Since joining Comcast in 2020, she's become a key leader in security, data curation, strategy, analytics, product development, and infrastructure operations. And we're lucky to have her here. Erin, thank you so much for taking time to be a part of this webinar today.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Tom, and excited to be here.
Let's start here. Why is continuous controls monitoring no longer sufficient to validate security controls and maintain compliance standards?
That's a great question. So, continuous controls monitoring was a major leap forward. It moved us from point in time audits and gave our organizations a living view of whether their controls were functioning or not functioning. But the world is changing, as we all know, and it's changed faster than CCM was designed to handle. Today's environments are sprawling. A single organization might have workloads across 4 or 5 different cloud providers, 100 different SaaS applications, on-premise infrastructure, a remote workforce, all generating data in different formats at different cadences with different owners. CCM tools were largely built to monitor known controls in known environments. They weren't built to handle the sheer volume, variety, and velocity of the data that we see at enterprises today. More critically, CCM tells you whether a control is in place, but not whether or not that control is actually working in the context of your full environment. You can have a policy that says multi-factor authentication is required, and CCM will confirm that that policy exists. But if MFA is misconfigured on a subset of cloud identities or bypassed by a third-party integration, that CCM will never surface that gap. The evidence is fragmented. The correlation's missing. Regulators are also raising the bar. We're getting additional framework changes each year on a very rapid base, such as DORA, NIST, FedRAMP. They're not asking, do you have these controls? They're asking, can you prove these controls are effective continuously? And can you demonstrate that proof to us? So it's no longer, do I have this control and do you monitor it? It's, I want you to prove to me this control is effective. That's a fundamentally different question, and it requires a fundamentally different capability.
Aaron, I talked up front about the evolving regulations, the distributed environments, continuous cyber threats, but combined, what do these actually demand today?
Yeah, it demands exactly what we're here to talk about, which is continuous assurance. It's not just continuous controls monitoring. There's a meaningful difference between the two. Monitoring watches, assurance validates, correlates, and confirms that change. Like I mentioned, the evolving regulations demand that organizations move from compliance as a snapshot to compliance as a continuous state. If we look at DORA, it requires financial entities to demonstrate operational resilience in real time. SEC disclosures require boards to attest to the effectiveness of that cybersecurity program, which means executives need accurate, defensible, timely evidence that they can stand behind. Distributed environments demand that data silos be eliminated. When your security telemetry lives in 12 different tools and your compliance evidence is scattered across spreadsheets, JIRA tickets, PDFs, you can't achieve real assurance. You can achieve a best effort approximation. And that's what most organizations are living with today. And continuous cyber threats demand that speed and precision. Attackers don't wait for your quarterly review or your monthly review. And control that was working Monday may be compromised Wednesday, and threat actors in by Friday. The threats today are very sophisticated and sophisticated enough to exploit the gaps between monitoring tools and the spaces where data doesn't flow, where correlations don't happen, where alerts don't fire. Closing those gaps and that assurance requires a unified, intelligent foundation more than a point in time solution.
Aaron, let's refresh our audience. What is a unified security platform and how can it power a new era of assurance?
Great question. A unified security platform is an approach that brings together the data, the controls, the validation, the reporting layer into a single coherent system. So that security teams, compliance teams, governance teams, they aren't assembling evidence from a dozen different tools every time they need to answer a question. They think about what assurance actually requires. You need evidence that the control exists. You need proof that they're configured properly. You need continuous validation that they're working and not just present. You need to be able to present that evidence to executives and to auditors and the regulators in a clear, credible format that they can trace that information from its raw data at the source to that exact number that you're presenting to them. Right now, most organizations are doing that manually, stitching together exports from their SIM, their GRC platform, their cloud security posture management tool, their vulnerability scanner, the EDR device. It takes weeks. Their evidence is stale by the time it's compiled, and it's nearly impossible to defend under scrutiny because you're doing small samples rather than looking at the entire population. A unified platform like a security data fabric changes that by making all of that evidence continuous, correlated, and readily accessible. It powers a new era of assurance because it shifts the question from can we provide the evidence before the audit to can we demonstrate compliance as an ongoing provable state. That's what executives, boards, regulators are starting to require. And organizations that build on this unified security platform are the ones that are going to be able to answer that question confidently.
Tell me more about this. What does the security data fabric enable that wasn't possible before?
A security data fabric is what makes unification real at scale. It's the architectural layer that collects, normalizes, connects security and compliance data from across your entire environment, regardless of the source, regardless of the format, regardless of the vendor. It's giving you that unified view. So, an analogy I like to use is if you're speaking Spanish, I'm speaking English, and someone else is speaking German, and we're all trying to have a conversation, it's pretty tough. But we all have language translators to where we can all speak the same language and decide where we want to go to dinner. That's essentially what a unified data platform like a security data fabric enables. No matter what vendor or tool you're utilizing, we're all able to talk the same language. Each of these systems could be telling you something, but none of them could tell you the full story. So we need to bring all of that information together. So questions like for every critical vulnerability identified this month, was there a compensating control in place and was it validated? Or which users have access that haven't been reviewed in the last 90 days? It also enables scalability. So as your environment grows, more cloud accounts get brought on, more tools are brought on, additional regulatory frameworks are created. A fabric scales with you. You're not building new integrations for every new data source. You're extending a foundation that already speaks the language of security and compliance. And most importantly, it enables trust in the data. One of the biggest challenges organizations face isn't a lack of data. It's a lack of confidence in the data that they have. A security data fabric really enables that entire picture. It includes data quality, your data lineage, the capabilities that when you present evidence to that auditor or to the board, you can say with confidence, here's where this came from, here's how it was validated, and here's the chain of custody.
So, bringing it back to continuous monitoring, what levels are now available?
Continuous monitoring has evolved significantly, and it's worth understanding the spectrum of what's now possible because not all monitoring is created equal, just like not all cars are created equal. At the foundational level, you have control existence monitoring. That's confirming your policies are configured and a control is present. This is where a lot of organizations started, but a lot of them are still there. It's valuable, but it's the floor, it's not the ceiling. The next level is control effectiveness monitoring. Not just is the control there, but is it doing what it's supposed to do? This requires correlating control configurations with actual behavioral data. Is your privileged access management tool configured correctly? And are the privileged sessions actually being recorded and reviewed at the cadence they're supposed to be? That's a more meaningful question than just, do I have a control for my access management tool? Above that, and kind of the top level, second to top level, is the risk-based assurance or continuous monitoring. This is where monitoring is prioritized. It's contextualized based off of the criticality of the asset, sensitivity of the data, the threat to the landscape. So is that a device that's on the outside of my network, or is that somewhere that's supposed to be siloed in my black box environment? Not every control failure is equal. Risk-based monitoring helps organizations focus on what matters most continuously. And then at the leading edge of that is now we're talking about that assurance level where we're at today or where we're hoping to be, where the outputs of continuous monitoring are automatically mapped to regulatory frameworks, aggregated into board ready reporting, and available to auditors on demand. This is where compliance stops being a periodic exercise and becomes more of an ongoing, provable state for your entire team. This is the level organizations need to reach to satisfy today's regulatory expectations and expansions that we're seeing, and to give executives the confidence that they need to make the different disclosures.
Now, talk more about this. How do these elements deliver what executives, boards, and regulators now expect?
Yeah, I think one of the key things here is executives, boards, auditors, they're all asking a version of the same question. One that we've highlighted already. Can you prove your security program is working right now? And can you show me the evidence? Executives need to make decisions, and with those decisions, they need to be confident in them. Boards are now being asked to exercise oversight over cybersecurity in ways that they never were before. They need dashboards and reporting that are credible, current, and translated, not to just, hey, this is where I have my CrowdStrike agents deployed, but what business risk does that tie to me? What's that financial monetary impact if I was not to roll out this EDR agent across the rest of my devices? Not raw telemetry that they can't interpret. And then on the flip side of that, regulators, they want defensible evidence. They're not satisfied with, hey, we have a policy. They want logs. They want the configuration. They want testing results. They want the audit trails to prove that that policy is enforced and effective. And they want to see this evidence is produced systematically, not assembled on demand for each audit. The combination of a security data fabric really is that unification of continuous monitoring and assurance level. So both of the second level and the top level reporting that can deliver all this. It gives you that executive real-time visibility. It gives you credibility with a translated view of risk. It gives the regulators the evidence that they require, and it's alignment across all three of those audiences.
Aaron, if you were to bring it back to DataBee, how do you work with customers to develop these new capabilities?
Yeah, so DataBee has been in existence since 2020, or 2022 now. And so DataBee really meets customers where they are. Most organizations we work with have significant investments in several cybersecurity tools, whether that's your SIM, your vulnerability management platform, your GRC tools, your cloud security tools. They're not looking to necessarily rip and replace technologies, but they do want to do some type of tool consolidation and get the most out of the tools that they investments that they've already worked to onboard. So the way that DataBee works is we start by understanding their data environment. What sources exist? Where are the gaps? What compliance or reporting requirements are driving the most pain for the organization? From there, we connect all those data sources together like a fabric and normalize that into a common schema known as OCSF. From there, we begin surfacing cross-source intelligence that wasn't really visible before. We then work collaboratively with the customers to build their continuous monitoring and assurance workflows. So understanding what frameworks do they align to, what controls do they have within their organization, what does effective look like for each control, and then allowing them to report on that to each of their stakeholders. It's not a deploy and disappear engagement. We're genuinely partnered with our customers as the requirements evolve, as new frameworks emerge, as their environments grow, they bring on new tools. DataBee is there. We're designed specifically for security and compliance teams at that enterprise scale because we've had those same pain points before at Comcast. We're not a general purpose data platform that security teams are trying to adapt. We're the schema, the integrations, the compliance mappings, they're all purpose built to solve for continuous assurance.
I like how you say that deploy and disappear is a relative to rip and replace, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I wonder if you might be able to share some use cases in some of your recent releases, please.
Yeah, so some of our most recent use cases that we've been really focusing in on is this continuous compliance assurance aspect, particularly for organizations that are managing multiple frameworks. So you can simultaneously look at NIST, PCI, the CIS 18, the Gartner ODMs. They all have overlapping control requirements, but maintaining the evidence across all of those separately is exhausting. So DataBee recently is launching a feature, or I think may have just launched a feature that allows customers to map a single control to multiple frameworks. And it can generate that evidence needed for each without duplicating effort. You can look at the data and say, this is what my point in time right now, as of Tuesday, control is. I'm at an 87%. Okay, I want to look at the data for each one of this, and I can dig all the way back to that raw information. So I have full traceability and evidence of how that 87% was derived. Board executive reporting is also increasing. And so we have executive level style dashboarding that you can release up. So if you're a CISO or a board, you have a certain view. If you're an analyst, you're going to be able to dive in, and or a BISO, you're going to be able to dive into what matters most to you in your context for your role. On the releases side, we've been expanding our framework coverage. We've also been deepening our integrations with various cloud and SaaS providers, enhancing our data quality and lineage capabilities of the platform. And then we just released RiskFlow, which is our AI capability, which allows you not necessarily to know how to interact with a dashboard or where to filter things that, why did a control change? How did it change? You can now start to ask each one of those in human text, plain language, just like we're having a conversation today. You'd be able to ask that AI interface, which is RiskFlow, to provide those answers for you.
Aaron, given everything we've talked about here, what are some of the questions that our attendees really need to be asking about their current capabilities?
Yeah, I think the first one is going back to our initial question is how long would it take you to produce a complete, accurate compliance evidence package today if you were asked by an auditors? How confident would you be in it that it is a full sample of and accurately reflecting your organization posture? If the answer is weeks and it's not not that long, that's a significant gap that deserves attention. The second question that I would ask is about your overall security posture across sources or within individual tools. If your SIM can tell you events, your vulnerability scanner can tell you your exposures, your GRC tool can tell you your policy status, but nothing connects them. So you do have visibility gaps. So the question really is, can I answer a holistic question without going to multiple tools? Third, probably most important, is when you're presenting these findings to a regular, to the board, to an executive, and you're asked to demonstrate the evidence today and stand behind that metric that you're providing, would you be comfortable doing that? And if the answer is no, then you probably need to work on your continuous assurance and developing this program.
Excellent points, all of them. So where can our viewers today go to learn even more about DataBee and about continuous assurance?
Yeah. So the best place to start is at databee.ai. There you'll find product information, solution briefs, resources on continuous assurance, security data fabric architecture, compliance coverage, data quality information. Really, we publish thought leadership content on trends that we've been discussing today. So if you want to go deeper on any of those topics, that's a great starting point. If you like the conversation that we had about today, I would encourage you to reach out to myself or at databee.ai. We do have an email address that we can provide here on the screen, and happy to take time to connect with you. We make it easy to schedule really a personalized demo or a working session with you to understand like what complexities you have, what are you trying to accomplish, or if you just want to have some one-on-one practitioner, I'm here to answer those questions as well. The bottom line is the standard for what good looks like in security compliance is changing quickly. And we try to stay on top of those trends. And so that's where DataBee is there to partner with you.
Very well said. Aaron, thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation and for answering my questions throughout the course of this session.
Yes, it was great being here, Tom.
Well, thank our attendees as well. You took time out of your day to be here. We're grateful for that. And I trust you're walking away with some excellent new insight. As always, I look forward to seeing you at one of our upcoming sessions. And until then, for Information Security Media Group, I'm Tom Field. Thank you so much for your time and attention today.